and spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's campaign. Karen, it's clear what this isn't, right? We know that the Ukrainian effort was not directed by the president of Ukraine, whereas on the Russian side, Vladimir Putin intelligence services say, Vladimir Putin was in charge of that. We know on the Ukrainian side, it wasn't the campaign chairman, the son of the candidate and whatnot at the meeting. There are clear differences here. But let's try to figure out what this was. I mean, this woman, Alexandra Hulupa, was someone who did work with the Democrats over a period of time, wasn't she?
Well, it's my understanding at the time, I mean, again, I just know this from the Politico reporting, that she was a consultant to the DNC at the time. And I can tell you, and I think Dan's own reporting can also tell you, I never met with her. I don't think anybody who was actually part of our research team met with her. I can tell you our director, the person who was directing our Trump research, never met with her. But here's something that's more important, you guys, that I think is getting lost in this. It's my understanding, at least from the Politico reporting, that the information or the conversation was about Paul Manafort's ties and the work that he had been doing, which, by the way, was not a secret. It was very open, and it is a very open fact that Paul Manafort, for years, worked against actually the pro-Western government in the Ukraine, and was actually supporting the sort of Putin puppet in the Ukraine. And so the questions, as I understand it, were about, was there information or about his work and those relationships? Let's remember, he actually had to quit the campaign after the convention in 2016 because there have been, it's now under FBI investigation, and that is yet another investigation that the Trump world doesn't want to talk about. I mean, it's another investigation that is expanding. So clearly there was there, and clearly this is publicly available information.
But are you saying if there's there, does that justify getting Oppo research from a foreign country?
But I think what we're saying is there's no evidence that that's what happened, right? I mean, even David just now from Politico was suggesting, he couldn't say that that's what happened. And in your introduction, you didn't say that that's what happened here. She may have been freelancing and trying to see what kind of information she could get. That is not the same. She most certainly did not sit down with Chelsea Clinton and John Podesta and Robbie Mook and say, here's what I got. And here's the other thing, guys, that I think is so important. Let's not take the bait. What is important here, we are talking about what we now know was the intrusion of a foreign government into our election. We know that in 39 states, they tried to interact with our voter data, and that in the state of Illinois says there were efforts to actually try to delete and change voter data. Now, that is very serious. We are talking about a hostile foreign government trying to impact the outcome of this election. They were very clear with Don Jr. about what their goals were, and he decided that that meeting was okay. This is total false equivalency here.
Look, as I've been saying, this is not apples to apples. It just isn't. These are two very different things that happened here, and we've outlined what the differences are. We are trying to figure out, though, the best we can, the fact versus the spin here. And one of the things that David Stern said is that at a very high level here, what it does seem that you might have is another government, in this case the Ukrainian government, that did have an interest in the outcome of the U.S. election and may have done something, whether it be provide documents, provide information when someone was asking for it. Do you deny that?
I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't have any. I was not part of any conversation like that, nor was anyone, at the DNC. I mean, they've said there was no collusion with the Ukrainians, and I can tell you on the part of the campaign, there was no such thing that happened. And again, I think it's important to remember that a lot of the information that it seems like, just from what I've read in reports that we're talking about, it's public information that Paul Manafort was doing this work in the Ukraine. So I think again, I mean, and his ties to the Russians, that was an issue from the time he was part of the campaign. And there were a lot of reporters working on that story as well. And I think in the Political reporting, they mentioned that there were a number of reporters actually in touch with the Ukrainian embassy to try to get information. And that's not the same thing as actually making it clear that you have a strategy that goes all the way to the top, like Vladimir Putin, who is former KGB, who has made it very clear that he wanted Donald Trump president and he did not want Hillary Clinton to be president.
All right, Karen Finney, great to have you with us this morning from some perspective from the Clinton campaign itself. Appreciate it. What's the bottom line here when it